All right, fellow humans, hello. Thank you all for being here. I'm not about quantity, I'm about quality, and I see great quality here, so this is great, and it means the world to us that you're here. Definitely for me as well, because what we're going to talk about today is more vital than ever, and it's been pushed aside for too long, and and so we're gonna get down and dirty in our conversation, and that's how we break stigmas. That's how we break stigmas. Make it uncomfortable to then normalize conversations like this, so we can feel like we are worthy of taking care of ourselves. Hey, yes, what's up?
Absolutely.
Welcome in.
Hello,
have a seat.
hello.
We're just getting started. So thank you all so much for being here. So my name is Gabriel Gutierrez. I am, in regards to, I'll expand on this more in a moment, but for MAGFest, MAGWest purposes, I am the department head for indies. Indies mean the world to me. I'm also an indie game developer as well. And I'm also on the board for MAGFest as well, as of just several months ago. So super honored to be, have attained that role. I've been volunteering with MAGFest since 2009. I stopped. Me too. Nice, my guy. Yeah. So I stopped for a couple of years because I can give myself this kind of a nudge to myself here. I formed the indies at MAGFest. That's super, and then we brought it here. So when I heard that MAGWest was happening, I was like, so we're gonna have indies here now, right? Because don't play that, right? And so we did. Here we are. I also DJ. So if you passed by indies earlier and you heard music playing earlier, that was me. I'll be playing more after this because I'm dying to play more music again. Just DJ video game music, electronic music. So yeah, that's me just on the MAGFest, MAGWest side. So your turn.
Hello.
Be gentle with the mic.
So my name is Nayati. I am a alternative, what am I? Shoot. So many things. Okay.
Here, I can pull your slide up.
Go ahead and do that. Yeah. Go ahead and pull my slide up.
Yeah.
So I'm a mental health ambassador and advocate. Everything I do is mental health. I've written a couple of books. I do open mic. I go to schools. I speak to children. I speak to young adults. I have a mental health group at a church. So we start off as Sunday school because it's in the church, so that's what you have to do. But after they open it up, my youth talk about everything from drugs to sex to rock and roll, because my whole purpose is to create a safe place. I do meditation rooms, I do reset tables, which is for women, even though I do love you men too, but it's for women. So we sit around and we express ourselves in a free space where we can get honest, critical, and supportive feedback about life decisions. So I'm here to support him. I don't know anything about the gaming industry, being transparent, but I believe that mental health, I see the mental health that is necessary, that is being ignored within the gaming industry, because I have grandchildren, I have children. I see how it can affect you through depression. I see how it can affect you through anxiety. Like, I know that it's there, and the fact when he talked to me, and I was like, that's crazy, because that is one of the arenas that it's such a stigma. The gaming industry have had such a stigma on you guys that now you have to step out about mental health. That's even harder. Like, how are you already judge us and now have to step out and say, I need this, and then they're gonna judge us again. So I wanna help create that safe space with him, and that's why I'm here. Yes. And I like making people smile too, so.
Which is actually, you should highlight that really quick.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, her acronym is SMILE.
It is SMILE. So I have SMILE, Ministry of Love, and I have SMILE Soul Therapy. And SMILE stands for Strength, in me inspires love eternal. Because when you share a smile, which is growth and healing, what you're doing is you're creating a feeling that lasts. It's transcendent. You know, I don't know if you ever had a bad day and that one person smiles at you and it lightens up your day, and it creates a position or an energy for you to smile at the next person. Mm-hmm. And when you heal yourself, you create a smile from the inside that carries from generation, just like pain, just like trauma. It carries from generation and teaches your children and your grandchildren not just smile on the outside, but to smile on the inside. And that's my focus, to smile on the inside.
Yes. Thank you, dear. That's right.
You're welcome.
Now, more about myself. So we talked about where we're from. I'm born and raised in both New Jersey and Puerto Rico, and moved out here to California, living in Sacramento as of almost 12 years ago. And I'm a dad to an adorable 5-year-old who is really me. He's really me, and I could not be more proud of that. It's not just a looks thing, he looks like me thing, it's a behavioral thing, and I'm absolutely okay with it. So, but he also knows actually starting at 4 years old, he knows what mental health is. So he knows the 2 words, and something I didn't appreciate or really fully wrap my head around until my 30s. I'm 46, and it just super proud of how far he's come already with recognizing what it does, the impact of that. My role as I have my lived experience as initially I start by saying, hey, welcome in, guys. I start by saying as a victim and then survivor of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and coercive control. And, but now I am not just an advocate, I'm a voice for it. So it's because those are my stages. It's, we look at victim, survivor, advocate. And then for me, it's voice. So now I get to be a voice to be of service for others and give that back. Especially as a man who don't get to talk about these things. We just don't get to do that. And for me, it's breaking that once and for all, is saying, if we don't do this now, we're fucked. We're all adults here, right? So we're fucked because, that's the suicide rate. It's higher in men. And we got to work on that. We have to work on that. So currently, my day job is as an advocate, as I mentioned, advocate and voice for both youth, adult, and family domestic abuse, coercive control, and in the middle of all that, I am still an indie game developer. My games have now become more personal than they used to be, and I'm. At first, I wasn't sure if I was going to be okay with that. I wasn't sure if I deserved to do that. But then I quickly got past that. I quickly got over that, right? So my role in the game development side, I'm not a programmer or an artist. I dabble in pixel art, stylized art, a little bit more pixel art, but really it's the creative direction, the story narrative, sound design, that's, and leading my team. I will, we'll Braveheart this shit without me killing myself. So kind of a thing, right? So my indie studio is November Rain, previously known as Nascent Games. So it's November Rain, and I have one released game called Crumple, Episode 1. It's on Game Jolt for free. And then I'm working on 3 more games. So yes, so more on that later. But I had a podcast called Above the Flaw, which talked about this kind of thing. I was also the chapter head for IGDA Sacramento, the Sacramento chapter, which is International Game Developers Association. I then changed it and updated it to the Sacramento Dev Collective, which independently run, and I passed that torch. In that, I founded Indie Arcade as well, and I myself run an open mic as well. I have 4 self-published poetry books out there, because poetry is one of those things other than gaming that has helped me be here today to talk about this, right? And then, of course, the most important thing, my top 3 games ever. Journey is my number 1. Flat the fuck out. If you haven't played it, Why? Please, for the love of it. So, phenomenal game. And then, of course, Chrono Trigger. Do I have to say anything else? And then Earth Defense Force, which, so Earth Defense Force, 5, specifically 5. And why 5? Because that's the game that saved my life. So, because when that game came out was my first time that I experienced suicidal ideation. And about 3 weeks later, and here's the thing I forgot that the game was coming because I ordered it on PlayAsia. It was my first imported game. It wasn't out in the States yet. And so I ordered it, and it was going to take months because it was like Christmas time, because this happened during Christmas time. And then the game showed up like a couple weeks later, and just like floodgates just opened. I was like, oh my God. And that game saved my life. Now there's 6, and it's not out in the States yet, but I imported it again, and 6 is amazing. But anyway, there's all that. So Earth Defense Force, it's like if you don't know what that game is, if you've seen the movie Starship Troopers, that's Earth Defense Force, but also on drugs. So a little bit of drugs. It's fantastic. It's just a fantastic game. So anyway, so there's that. So that's a bit of me. So now we're going to talk about level 1, not going at it alone. As creatives, it is extremely easy and extremely comforting to do it ourselves because, we often put, the thing about being a creative is that we're putting all our emotional eggs, as the eggs in one basket. Emotionally, we're doing that as well. Psychologically, we're putting it all in one basket because more often than not, that's the only form we have to express ourselves. It's the only form where we feel understood, the only form that we feel that we can escape to, right? But more often than not, we get lost in it because it's a great feeling. Yes, we're creating great things from it, but we forget that we are still human at the end of the day, and like a car, we're eventually going to run on empty. And how do we replenish ourselves? How do we do that? And unlike a warning sign in the car, we're not paying attention to that within ourselves, right? So we're going to talk about that, a little bit, talking about that resilience, right? But first, before we go there, we're going to talk some numbers here. So, as of January of this year, key findings regarding 21% of adults have experienced mental illness, which is an equivalent to over 50 million Americans, right? And I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read some important stuff here, right? Now, 55% of these adults with mental illness have, received no treatment. So we're talking over 20 million individuals, right? Now, we talk about who of the youth, right? Because there's been a huge focus on the youth, and for me that's really important. But also, what about the parents of said youth? What about the adults who maybe they don't have kids, but where do we all stand here? So on the youth side, 60% of youth, major depression, do not receive mental health treatment. Not okay. Now we're talking countrywide here. You'll see where California comes up. 350 individuals for every one mental health provider. Shit. I had a hard time finding it. For my challenge, for me, it wasn't finding a therapist, it was finding a good one. Finding one who wasn't going to fall asleep when I shared my problems, because that actually happened. And I said, that's absolute bullshit. It's like, I'm like, okay, I may not always find myself very interesting, but I had things to share. And she was flat dozing off in front of me. And I'm like, oh no, yeah, that sucked. So now, and then, one last stat I'll read here, 23% of adults who report experiencing 14 or more mentally unhealthy days each month were not able to see a doctor due to costs. So now, where is California ranked? 19th out of 51. Wisconsin was number 1, Kansas was number 51. We're 19th. All this, the healthcare industry that we have here, all this talk, all these different counties talking about how we're going to address this, mental health crisis, as what they call it. They keep calling it a crisis, and yet we're 19th. Why is that okay? Now, April of last year, right. April of last year, Mental Health of America did a screening, right? And so they did these screenings, who has depression, anxiety, so on and so forth. Now, in total, over 4 million people took this screen, right? Of them, the majority took a depression screen, 32%, anxiety, 20%, bipolar, 16%. Percentage of those who took a depression screen decreased, thankfully, from 2020 to 2021, right? So cool. Now, 70% of screeners identified as female. 70% identified as female, 25% identified as male, 5% identified as another gender. Percentage of screeners who identified as another gender increased 2.35% from 20 to 21. Now, in April 2020, Mental Health of America added the option to identify as transgender. Hey, welcome in. To identify as transgender, 4% of screeners from the U.S. identified as transgender in 2021. Now, a little bit more. Expanded stats on loneliness, because loneliness is one of the biggest factors behind all these other issues going on right now. The game industry is, from what I just heard a couple of days ago, hit the near 300 billion mark in overall global revenue, 300 billion, and yet 5.4 million people who completed the screening represents a nearly 500% increase over those who screened in 2019 and over 103% increase in 2020 experiencing loneliness. Gaming, which is supposed to bring people together, right? It's supposed to bring people together somehow. And yet this, right? So people screening at risk for mental health conditions struggle most with loneliness or isolation. Among those who screened positive or moderate to severe for mental health conditions, 63% reported one of their top 3 things contributed to their mental health concerns was loneliness or isolation. Here is, I'll share this, and there's a bigger issue that I don't think I put here. Follow the reporting of this loneliness. The loneliness was triggered by past trauma, or relationship problems, or sometimes both. Now, here's the thing behind this. With this stat, another thing I came across, I didn't have time to put this here, was those screened, I think it was about 48% of those in their 20s and 30s said they did not have someone they can call a friend at all. No friend that they can talk to, no one they can turn to. Not okay. That is not okay. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. Because we gotta make this uncomfortable. Stigmas are not broken until we make it uncomfortable and normalize this, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea here is seeking connections. How do we seek those connections? It starts by being cooperative in your recovery. I have been in my recovery since the abuse happened back in May of 2017 to, because then I became a parent at the same time. I was becoming a dad at the same time. How the hell was I going to do that? But I did, and I'm here, right? But it took me understanding that I could not be, that I had to separate the definition of being by myself and being alone. There is a difference. My favorite song of all time, Wherever I May Roam, from Metallica, it says that line. It's my number 1 song of all time. You play that song, I will drop everything. That's my favorite song. And they say that just that line, by myself but not alone, did not register with me until I heard that. And I'm like, what? Spoke loud and clear to me. And now I say that when I provide peer support, when I talk to my friends, and when they say, I just feel so alone, you're not alone, because I'm right here in front of you. You're not alone. You're by yourself, and it's okay to be by yourself. But if you get consumed, you will become alone. And that's why we talked about the loneliness side of it, right? So it's committing to then being curious in how you're going to get better, how we're going to get better. Is this okay? Do I deserve this? Because that's one of the biggest issues we talk about. Do I even deserve this? Hey, welcome in. Do I even deserve this? Do I deserve to recover? I put myself here, right? Because that's what we do to ourselves. We sabotage ourselves, right? We love to do that, or even if we don't love to do that routinely, that's what we're going to do, because this is all or nothing for us, right? So it's like a broken Nintendo. We need to reset it, right? We need to reset it, maybe blow a little air in the cartridge to get the damn thing working, right? But that's okay. It's what we got to do in order to keep things moving along, right? So it's hitting that reset button for ourselves, kind of pausing it all and saying, what has happened around me? What has happened around me, and who am I going to talk to first? First person really is yourself. And then do research online, Mental Health of America, go to NAMI, other resources like that, and start seeking that connection. There's a lot of free resources that can lead you in the right direction, right? But you have to give yourself that grace and credence that you are worthy of that. Does that make sense? Am I boring you also for yet? No? Okay, cool. Because the mask thing is super hard right now. I'm like, I hope I got this right. I hope I got this right. So it's all good. So, and now here, and I'm going to say this last point is this. Not just, especially for men, and again, this, I don't say it to dismiss women, because that's not at all what the thing is. Because women have done a phenomenal job at opening themselves up, and she's going to talk about that a bit more, right? And but for us, it's been really difficult. We've been challenged so hard when we start expressing ourselves and getting sensitive and emotional. We start getting criticized for that, right? It is establishing what you can and cannot do. That is what you can't do is the most important part, because we have been tailored to think we have to conquer all of it. We are men. We have to do all of it. Stop. We're human. We are human. We can't do it all. We shouldn't do it all. We shouldn't. We need to get that help. We need to wave the white flag and say, I surrender. Please, someone help me. You have to be able to do that. And you start doing that, you start molding better boundaries for yourself and your sanity. Really, your sanity, right? So in the next level, we continue this, it's only overwhelming if you allow it. So who are you going to choose to be, right? Because the walls are meant to climb or break through with a wrecking ball, but not confined. Super important. And also, that's a screenshot of my next game. So, with that said, so who are you going to be? Best friend or worst enemy? So you deserve to get help. You deserve to not just be heard. And I want to make this clear. Social media tries. Not very well, so I'm going to help refine some words a little bit, right? Less like I did the by myself, not alone thing, right? I don't want to be heard. I want someone to listen. We need people to listen. Being heard is fine, but we need people to listen, because the response that we get, I hear you, it sounds so fucking generic. No, it was cool, it was cute 2-3 years ago. We need more than that. We need people to listen, right? And you deserve to detach from those who claim to be ready to support you, but also not want to know what happened. Because there are those with good intentions that say, I'm a call away if you need me, but I also don't want to know what happened. Don't give me any detail. That's not helping. That is not helping. You cannot be Switzerland your whole life. You ultimately have to pick a side. What's okay and what's not okay. And the hardest thing about, especially when it's from family or a partner, and the thing about, you love them, right? The thing about love, the other side of love is, hey, welcome in, guys. The thing about love, that side of love that we don't like to talk about, is loving someone enough to tell them, you are not supporting me. You are actually becoming no good for my mental health. You have to be able to love them enough to tell them that. We have been told that we should never do that. That's not love. Yes, it is. Because if it's harming us, that's not love. That's just not it. So you have to be able to love them enough to say, I need to love you from a distance. Does that make sense? Right? Hard. Is this heavy hitting shit? You probably weren't ready for this. Good. So, pressing start, changing your dialect. I'm not going to run away. I'm going to run forward. I walk fast. I suck at running, but I walk fast. Yeah. Let's keep this. I'm curvy. I ain't got lungs like that. I can haul ass in Skyrim. But real life, my stats ain't never going to be high enough for that. Here's another thing, and she's going to talk about this shortly. Own what you have declared. I am somebody. Taking ownership of who you are, taking ownership of what has happened, and taking ownership of who you want to be next. That is super important. And again, and see, that's how people will listen. Make sense? That all makes sense? That's how people are going to listen. Hey, what's up? What's up? Welcome. I love this. This is great. Humans are here. You are worth, only you, this is the final thing on this, only you can speak and determine your worth. Understand? And I say that not to dismiss the support from other people, but but let's say we're working on a project and we're just not happy with this, and you've got people who, they're like, no, you've done, you're doing great, you're doing great. There's a thing called toxic positivity, and at some point, I don't need the pick-me-ups. I don't need the platitudes. What I need is for you to listen. I need you to just stand by my side. Sometimes I just need you to scream with me. And I will tell you that's one of the coolest things ever. I mean, they did it in Final Fantasy X. I don't have to say anything, but you don't know about that. You don't know about that. And I'm going to send you the video later. You'll see. You'll see. So have someone scream with you. Hopefully not as cheesy as that. Hopefully, like I got tinnitus for a week after that. But that's the kind of thing we need. We need that. And you have the right to ask for that. You need to ask for that. And those things are okay. It's not even just okay, it's important, super important. Because that's part of our chemical balance, how we empower one another. That's why, if you noticed, the title of our session today is not mental health for creatives, it's mental empowerment. Health is the all-being, but what's the action behind the health? It's the empowerment of it, how we empower ourselves. So we're going to keep moving here. Now, we talk about these three things here when it comes to who do I talk to first. What's up, guys? Welcome. You have your peer support, which is me. I am peer support. I am peer and trauma support. And then you have, and with me, whether you speak with me in a group, because I also run support groups, I can facilitate a support group in no time flat, or one-on-one. The idea behind my approach is we're not looking at diagnosis, we're looking at you. I'm looking at you. What led you here? What are you going through? How are we going to get through it? How can I be your cheerleader? Minus the pom-poms, because I ain't going there. Just saying. Then there's life coaching. Life coaching focuses on you've got through certain obstacles of your life. You are at this certain crossroads. Now you need to know what next. Like, what do I do next? Which way am I going, right? And that's the life coaching, super helpful as well. And then finally, there's therapy. And I am still in therapy, not necessarily because I need to, because I want to. Huge difference. Huge difference. Before I needed it. Now I don't need it. Now I want it, because it's helped me maintain myself and be here to talk about this and wake up the new day to get this shit right. Right? Because that's the other big thing. We're not always going to get it right. And it's okay if we slip. It's okay, but it's how we pick ourselves up and dance, right? So, and I only dance one style. So it's all good. But I digress. Salsa music for the win. So now I'm going to turn this over to Nayade, Melissa, and time has flown so hard on this one. So just keep it moving. Yeah.
Huh? What? Where?
Time has just flown by. So
okay, great. Yeah. Can you go back to the first screen?
Oh, the first screen? Wait.
Well, my first screen.
Goodness sake, your first screen?
My first screen.
Oh, okay.
Which is,
stand by. Sorry, my folks.
That's
Okay,
great.
there.
Oh, caught. Ooh, caught. What's a day without a laugh, right?
Absolutely.
So I expressed before some of you got here the things that I do. Now they're on the screen. I can run through them. The most important part of my bio is I am love born from pain. because every smile that you see on me, every smile I put in on other people's faces, every hug I give, every hug I accept is because I know what it feels like to be alone. I know what it feels like to not be seen, and I know what it feels like to hurt so bad that if just one person said you matter, it would make a fucking difference. So of all the qualifications that I have, of everything I do, when you see me, the first thing I want you to see is that I am love, born from our pain. And now you can go into the rest of it.
I love it.
Because all that stuff is important, all the certificates is important, all the therapist credentials is important, but at the end of the day, that paper is not gonna make someone feel whole again. That paper is not gonna stop somebody from committing suicide. I had a therapist, this is one of my favorite stories, but it's not a good story, but it's still my favorite story. And this is what made me decide to go into therapy. This is the final straw. I had a therapist, I was living in Oakland, California. And I went to the therapist, and we're talking, and I'm telling her my story, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, you are really strong. If that stuff happened to me, I would have killed myself by now."
Yeah, let that soak up for a moment, right? She told me
And as
that.
I'm sitting in that therapy session, I'm like, did she just say that? Now, I struggle with bipolar, so fortunately, I was in a manic episode. But can you imagine if someone had went in there on their last leg and really depressed, like, she just gave me permission to do it. Like, let me go home and take care of this. So that is my favorite, and thank you for laughing. That is my favorite story. Like I said, it's not a good story, but it's a real story. Like, she didn't have the empathy. She had all the credentials, but she had none of the empathy and life experience. So I have my own organization, and it's called Smile. And I have Smile Ministry of Love, which bred Smile Soul Therapy. And SMILE stands for Strength in Me Inspires Love Eternal. Love eternal is when you love yourself so much, so vividly, that it spreads automatically. It spreads to your children's children. It spreads to your friends and your family. Because if it's one place hate can't live, it's love. I can't love you and hate you. I can love you and not like you or the things that you do, but I can't love you and hate you. And children, adults, whoever you come in contact with, they can't give you love if you don't show love. So one of the things I found to be true is that we're not given the tools to recover. And when I say recover, I mean trauma recovery. We're not given the tools, and we're expected to be okay. We hear models all the time. You're gonna be okay. Just hold your head up. Just smile. Do some self-care. But no one is telling you what this involves. What are the tools that are needed to do these things? And then even when you're given the tools on social media, I'm on social media all the time with my children and my grandkids because I have to spy on them. They say that these things are out there and no one gives you the tools. And then when you see the tools, no one's telling you how to use them. So you hear someone saying, "Oh, you want to relax, self-care, to give yourself a bubble bath." What if your size doesn't allow you to sit in the damn bathtub? What if you're afraid of water? So now you're thinking, okay, so what else am I gonna do? They say light candles. What if you have a fear of fire? So it's not just about having the tools, it's knowing how to use the tools and making the tools specific to each person. When I talk to my warriors, we sit and we conversate, not just about the tools that work for them, but the tools that work for me. Because one of the things that I've discovered and I've seen many a therapist, not knocking them, do is they tell you things that will work that they've never done. They say journal, and they've never journaled. So if they haven't journaled, they can't tell you what to do when you say, "I'm stuck." When you say, "I sit in front of this paper and this book and I'm just staring at it and I don't know what to write." I journal. I can tell you, write whatever you want. Make squiggly lines, make circles, write until there's something comes off, and it don't have to be neat. If you pick up a page and it's just a whole bunch of scratches, if it made you feel better, then that's your journaling. If I go for a walk, I can tell you how to walk. If I don't walk, I'm not gonna tell you to go for a walk and free your mind, because I don't do that. And as I was saying earlier, the smile is an internal feeling. and transferable energy that lasts eternally. When I say smile, I'm not talking about what's on the outside. I'm talking about what's on the inside. Because I know, because I've done it many a years, I can smile on the outside and be crushed on the inside. I can smile on the outside and want to go home and die on the inside. So I'm not talking about the outer smile. Even though the outer smile is a beautiful start, they say fake it till you make it. It's a beautiful start. But what I want to heal is on the inside. I was expressing with people earlier with Gabriel, I'm not the gaming person. All this stuff you guys have going on here, I don't know nothing about nothing. I see people in their costumes, I'm like, who's that? What's that? I love it, but I don't know anything about it, just being transparent. But what I do know is I see the mental health that's needed in that area. I see the mental health, and I was telling him, there's been so much stigmatism behind gaming. You guys had to hide in the closet that you played games. What do you mean you're a nerd? You're never gonna get anywhere with that career. I have a brother who used to help create video games 20 years ago. He stopped because he was a black man in an industry that was already hard for white people, let alone anyone of color, to be accepted and taken seriously. So I know that there's mental health that needs to be addressed. I've seen my grandson sit in front of the computer on a video game because that's the only place he felt seen. Because he's dealing with whatever he's dealing with on the inside. I can't say it because he's streaming and I want him to be mad at me. But I see him dealing with the things that he's dealing with, and that video game helps give him a piece of belonging, a piece of someone's hearing me, someone's seeing me. So I have a 5-step process, and my 5-step process for my therapy is isolate, reflect, acknowledge, accept, and embrace. And when you isolate yourself, that means you take yourself away from outside distractions. Whatever, get off the console too sometimes. Whatever it may be, take yourself away for a minute. Now let me tell you, because these steps will help with your video game too, okay? Just listen. So you take yourself away, sit in the grass, go outside. If you can't go outside that day, sit by the window. Just look outside. Take in something other than what you're used to. When we do that, that allows us to think about ourselves, to think about what makes us feel good, to think about what brought us here and what our next step should or shouldn't be. It allows us to look back at situations, whether the situation was, how did I lose 5 lives? I could have sworn I made that jump. I could have sworn I got that aim. How did he hit me? Or like my grandson would say, no one had my back when I went around the corner. The grenade wasn't there, you know? So you isolate and you're like, okay, well, how can I have played the game differently, right? So, right, it works throughout.
That's heavy.
You isolate yourself so that you can think about your moves, your next moves. And then you reflect. So when you're reflecting, you're looking back on everything that went on in your life. Everything, the good, the bad, everything that has affected you. And you think about it from not our biased viewpoint, which is hard to think outside of our own box, right? Because in our box, we're always right. In our box, we're always right. Even when we're wrong, we're right. Sometimes we have to step back and look at it from, so I have this thing that I do in a situation when I know I'm right and everyone else seems to think I'm wrong. I say, well, if the shoe was on the other foot, how would I have reacted if they had did that to me? And at first, initially, you're gonna say stuff like, I don't care, I wouldn't care. Okay, let's stop lying to ourselves, right? You would care, you would. So you look at from the other point of view, you say, okay, well, what could I have done differently? And that's how we reflect on our life. We have to reflect in a way that is gonna be beneficial for us. Back to the video game. You reflect on next time, you might wanna look around the corner before you step out there in front of the gunshots, right? I don't know, what game is that? They're always shooting.
A lot of them.
Okay.
It's a lot of them.
I told y'all transparency. I don't know. I just know that they be shooting and stuff.
Mario Kart.
They shooting Mario Karts now? Oh my God. When I played Mario, they didn't shoot Mario. It was like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, it's a thing called the blue shell. It can destroy your day and relationships and things like that. But anyway, but that's another session. That's for another time.
I would lose. So as I was saying, when you reflect, you have to be ready to be wrong. You have to be ready to accept your position and accept what you've done in that situation. The part you played, thank you for coming by. The part you played in this game called life,
That was
right?
like so Richard Nixon what I just did. Sorry, jeez Louise.
What did you do?
I just did like this, and I'm like, God, pull the Nixon out. Sorry.
Our next step, so we have isolation, reflect, and then we have acknowledge. During the acknowledgement stage, you are acknowledging that you did play a part in whatever went on, whatever went wrong, wherever you're sitting at this place in your life, it's not all someone else. There is something that I like to tell people, when you come to me, and I'm not here to judge. I'm not judging anybody, because believe me, if there was a judgment before us, I'd be in the hell with the rest of them, okay? So I'm just saying I would.
No, I get it.
When you acknowledge what you've done, I mean, where was I at? Was I acknowledged? Okay, I was. Sorry, y'all.
It's okay.
I'm not saying that you're right or you're wrong, but what I'm saying is acknowledge your input. Acknowledge what you did. When they come, they say, you know what? And I've done this with my children and my grandchildren. Like I said, these steps are embedded in everything I do in life. My teacher was this. I had one of my children or my grandchildren, so you have to be broad because they're watching. So I had someone bring home grades that wasn't so good. Their excuse was every teacher that they brought up had an issue. Okay. So at some point, whether it's your jobs, whether it's a car, whether it's your school, at some point you have to say, what's the common denominator? What part did I play? How can I have made this a better situation for me? Sometimes we have to walk away. Sometimes we have to pull ourselves away. And sometimes we have to run away. And any one of those are okay. What's not okay is to stay where you know is not conducive for your health, your mental health, your physical health. With acknowledgement, you realize, and you help yourself realize that that's not the place for you. And once you realize that that's not the place for you, you can move on to acceptance. Acceptance is the hardest part of the 5 steps, because it means that you have to swallow your pride, your shit, whatever it is. You have to swallow that. You have to say, I'm me, and who I am is okay. Now, how do I deal with who I am? How do I work this into my everyday life? How do I make this be okay? I've had a lot of trauma. I grew up, my childhood, I've had a lot of trauma. So people deal with trauma different ways. As I grew up, I became the aggressor. I was very aggressive. I was very mean. I was nice when you met me until I wasn't. And then when I wasn't, I fucking wasn't. But I had to accept that. I had to accept that so that I could work on that, so that I could change that. Because in my eyes, I wasn't. When I first started anger management, I tell people I went to anger management. I went to anger management for 2 years because I flunked the first year. So when I went to anger management, it was always, well, if they knew I had a bad temper, why did they do it? Well, if they knew that's how I felt, why did they do it? That's not okay. That's not okay. That's a cop-out. That's you not accepting who you are. You're still putting the blame on everybody else. So after I learned to accept my actions and my behaviors, I decided to use the knowledge I knew about myself and embrace it. So the bad, the ugly. First, let me tell you, when I realized who I was, I cried. I was like, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. I did that. Oh my goodness, I made them feel like that. I couldn't believe that. You know, you see people on TV and you're like, oh, they're such a bad person. Well, I looked at them and I was like, oh shit, I'm them. Like, oh my goodness. Like, how do I live with myself? I hated myself. I went off, I was homeless for a year. I went off and did drugs. I was like, I don't deserve to be here. My kids deserve to hate me forever. I'm just gonna disappear myself from everybody else's existence because apparently I wasn't doing them any good. And then when I got past the woe is me, And I began to accept who I was. Began to accept that my pain hurt people. And I began to accept that my pain was not a crutch, but it was somewhere for me to pull my strength from. And when I accepted that, I learned how to use it in more productive ways. So instead of getting angry and slapping somebody, I know that I have the possibility to do that. So what I do instead is I feel the feelings coming on. I know how I would respond, so I choose to walk away. I go home and I'll write a poem. I'm like, this motherfucker. And then I'm all good. But I had to know that, otherwise you keep yourself in a space. I'm gonna
Soft, subtle language, right?
I'm gonna share something with you that I learned in anger management, huh?
A minute, right?
Well, okay, you heard what he said. Okay, so so the last step is embrace. So when you embrace who you are, every step of the way, you learn how to use what you have. Go to the last slide. You know how to use what you have
There you go.
to make your life easier. So instead of using your pains as a cement block to hold you down, there you go. Instead of using your pains as a cement block to hold you down, you use it as a cement block to step up on. You use it to lift you up and to be a better person to others than you feel like people have been to you. There's something I tell people, I know what it feels like to hate the world and to hate yourself in it. My purpose on this planet is to show you what it feels like to love yourself and love yourself in the place that you're in. Never be afraid to walk away. Never be ashamed to say I'm wrong. And never, ever, ever have a problem with looking yourself in the mirror and say, I may not be perfect, but I'm imperfectly perfect to love me. And remember to smile. And that's it. And thank you for having me today.
You're welcome, of course.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. That's my dear friend. She's one of the reasons, I mean, real talk, she's one of the reasons I'm around today still. I met her at the earliest part of my recovery, which really kicked in, 2018, 2019. And she's one of the reasons I'm here, and I mean, how else do we celebrate this, right? So before we close out, and if there's any questions, this is how you can get in touch with me. That's my website for my indie studio. Below that is an initiative, which I'm hoping will become a nonprofit or a for-profit with just nonprofit attention. I don't know. Point is that November Rain is my indie game studio. The Arcade House is, which is actually, I think this is I didn't share this at the last panel because I first did this presentation at MAGFest Super earlier this year. So this is actually my first time at MAGWest doing this, but my second time this year. So I'm really happy about that. But that second part, the Arcade House, wasn't there the first time. So you're all getting to learn about this now. So it's called the Arcade House, and the premise behind it is it's going to be a home to unite creatives of all disciplines and not just talk about what they're going through, but also create something from it and how we get to share that with one another. And just finally have a little home for that, right? So, okay, so with all that said, any questions? We've got a couple moments. Any questions at all before we call it a day for the moment? Yes.
You mentioned that you went from blaming your, I'm sorry, this is for...
Oh, for Nayade?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
You just mentioned a process of going from blaming yourself or not liking yourself for your past to embracing it and using it and loving yourself instead. Is that like a super long process, or was there a moment where you're like, you know what? You just start thinking about how I looked at myself?
It was a long process. It was a long process because it sounds simple, but to get from the place of I did that, I am that, and I am more than that is, like I said, 2 years of anger management. And if it had not been for that 2 years of anger management, I don't know if I ever would have reached that spot. And that caused me to, it's exercises. It's a constant thing. And when I isolated to get there, I didn't just isolate in my room. I went to Grass Valley for 4 months with no internet, no telephone. And the first month I just cried. And then after I got past that, I was able to start listening to myself and writing and paying attention to me and seeing where I was really hurt and what caused me to be where I was. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's that reset, right? That's the reset. You know,
Yes.
she mentioned something earlier about faking it till we make it. You know, and I think that's just another one of those that language that we should really seek to change. And it's really, my belief is, you know, instead of faking it till we make it, maybe be truthful to be fruitful.
Yes.
And when I say that, is being, you know, honest with yourself. Like, this is what's happened, and, you know, but I am not this person now. I can become more. I am not yesterday. I am now. And what do I choose to become from that, right? And how that impacts our projects, you know, our artwork, our programming, our anything that we do as creatives, anything that we do, it will show. It will show with how we, if we lead projects, how we talk to our people, how we lead our team. If we are being led, you know, but, you know, let's say it's, because there's a difference between having a leader and having a manager. Anyone can manage, can be a manager. No one can be a fucking leader. There's a huge difference. And I'm telling you this right now, you need leaders in your life. Anyone, you can find managers. Managers are a dime a dozen. But we don't need managers. We need leaders that can help empower us further, because leaders acknowledge their shit. You know, managers, they should. Some do. I've met some, thankfully, but it's not always the case. And so there's both sides that it impacts when we continue to change those kinds of dialects and those perspectives, how we get treated, but also how we treat others, right? So, any other questions, thoughts, or anything like that? Was this helpful? Was this fruitful? Was this good? Okay.
And if you ever see me on the streets, I am an open book. You could ask me any question.
Same.
I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I have been through some shitoda, and you can ask me anything. Another thing you can do, you can always ask me for a hug. Ask first. Because I might have reflexes on you. But
Yeah, ask for it.
I will give a hug, because a hug can save a life. You never know. You might be saving mine. Hugs are beautiful.
It's all in that, yeah. It's all in that moment. So, so yeah. If you want to continue talking, something comes to mind later. Nothing comes to mind right now, but maybe later. Find me at Indie Games, as I mentioned earlier. I run Indie Games. I'm the department manager for Indies, and so I'll be playing music up there in a little bit. You know, I feel so much better after this conversation. So yeah. So I'm just gonna play some music, and thank you. Yeah. But really, thank you all for the support. It really means the world to me, and it means the world to her. I'm glad to hear that this was helpful in some way, shape, or form for you all. So yeah, please, if you'd like to stay in touch, that's the way. And then take care of yourselves and take care of one another. And if you can't be kind, just stay out of the way. Just stay out of the way, and give yourself that space to just be in it. But but don't stay in there for too long. Okay?
And it's okay to stay out the way.
Yeah, it's
when
really okay.
When I'm having a bad day, and I'm like, you ever had those days where you say, if one more person say something to me, you know what I do? I close my door and stay inside, because I don't want to be that person. It's enough ugliness in the world, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay to back away.
So much love to you all. Thank you so much.